welcome to those who are joining in. We're going to get started here in about 8 minutes officially. So settle in if you know what we're here for. If not, maybe I can answer that briefly before we get started. I will let you know this is probably going to be a longer episode, and it's late for a lot of people. So as a reminder, this entirety will be posted on our YouTube channel, also featured on our website at devilsadvocates.info. So if you miss this or can't stay, because it might be lengthy and it's starting late, heads up, I will have the whole recording available on YouTube and on our website. Hopefully whatever I say tonight is not going to get us any repercussions and kicked off TikTok and or YouTube, but the website people don't have any control over. So the video will at a minimum be on YouTube, on the website. Hopefully also you get to watch the entirety here, and you also get to see the recording if you missed some of it on YouTube. YouTube does have a lot more tolerance than TikTok, so we should be fine both on, we should be fine everywhere. I'm going to be very careful tonight, so. But I'm going to be giving my opinions starting in about 7 minutes on the new Luigi Mangione special that just came out on Investigation Discovery called Who is Luigi Mangione? And I'm going to be giving my first thoughts. Hopefully the dogs in the other room will shut the hell up and you can actually hear what I'm saying. I realize the microphone has been a little bit of an issue. I'm trying to decide if I need to get some kind of external boom mic for TikTok videos when I'm doing lives. We'll see about that. But I'm going to give my first takes. I will let you know that I plan on doing a further deep dive or analysis with more thought out presentation on Wednesday during my regular live time at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wednesday, and also maybe on Friday. This is going to be raw emotion. Notes I've got in front of me. I've got 5 pages of typed up notes of things that I want to talk about, and be very careful on how I present them from this fresh perspective. More polished and more refined on Wednesday when I get into getting some of these initial thoughts out and getting more polished. And I'm also going to maybe change a little bit of how I deliver some things based on tonight's documentary, and I'll explain that here fully in about 5 minutes when we get started. So for those who do want to help us out, if you're a regular and you want to help us out, giving us some likes to get some more attention in the algorithm before we get started would be super awesome. But I don't want to beg, so if it happens, it happens. If not, it doesn't. But that always helps us out. Share with anybody that you think might be interested in this comment. Let people know that we're live. Like I said, this is going to be a pretty lengthy discussion about the documentary. I suspect, out of a guess, that probably over half the people who are going to come listening to my opinions probably did not watch the documentary themselves, because a lot of people wanted to boycott the constant barrage of might be misinformation or swaying public opinion before the trial even begins of Luigi Mangione. So I do respect that in some regards. You're going to be listening to somebody's biased opinion, just not their biased opinion, but you're going to hear my biased opinion tonight. So in a way, super flattered that you want to hear my biased opinion and that you didn't support the Luigi Mangione special tonight, if that was what your intent was. But we're going to talk about my first thoughts. We're going to talk about what I think, we're going to talk about what I thought about the delivery of the episode, what the message of the episode was, and what the key takeaways are from that. As much impartial as I can do. I'll explain that more fully in about 4 minutes. So yeah, so you watched the documentary live yourself, or the documentary was lame. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to go into all my thoughts and opinions. Again, if for some reason you can't stay for this and you still want to know what I talked about, again, this will be posted after the show, probably a couple hours after the show before it's allowed to be downloaded from TikTok and re-uploaded to YouTube, but I will have the whole thing in its entirety, assuming that I don't get kicked off of TikTok. Usually what happens, by the way, I want to clarify again with my 3 minutes beforehand that I haven't gotten a community guidelines violation since TikTok went dark and came back up. I have not received one. Let's keep it that way. And I'm going to do some efforts to make sure that we hopefully stay on the right side of a very fine line. I'll explain that line here at the beginning of the hour. But my intent is to keep us from getting banned. But the worst case scenario, and this is why I want to bring this up early, the worst case scenario that usually happens is if something gets flagged because of something I said or whatever, the live usually stays going for the people who are in the live currently. It just won't be advertised to new people, and new people won't be able to join. So furthermore, if you're thinking about staying here, be concerned about surfing away and coming back. You may not be able to get back if they lock this down. So be super, super careful about that, because there is a strong possibility if I breach some kind of gray area and somebody gets upset, that they could lock it down so that new people can't join, and then it's just going to be us little homey little people who are sitting here, and that'll be it for the rest of the night. So we'll see how that goes. I'll be starting in about 2 minutes. This was nitpicky body language analysis. They did like how they complained the way Luigi pleaded. Yeah, we're gonna talk. I'm gonna talk about hopefully all of that here in a little bit. And again, I've got about 2 minutes, it looks like, before we get started. I got pages and pages of handwritten notes that I transcribed to typed written notes because my handwriting is atrocious and I would spend more time trying to read my own handwriting. So I did my best to retranscribe my handwriting into typed notes so I have a better shot at it on this live, to cover all my thoughts, which might still be a little disjointed. I tried to organize my notes a little bit on this paper, cutting and pasting things together that stayed with the theme, and so not so much exactly how it was presented, but more like thoughts. So, and yeah, I absolutely, for those who refused to watch the documentary but want to know what was said, this is a great way to do it. Again, I want to predicate this that I will have biased opinions. Any of us are going to have biased opinions. So you're going to hear my biased opinion about what that documentary was and wasn't. But I'm super flattered that you're willing to hear my biased opinion, and that you wanted to boycott that. It's comforting. I appreciate that people, some people care what my opinions were on it. How did the fingerprints go from smudged to matching? We're going to talk about that. It's 7 o'clock now, so let's get started on my formal thing. Okay, I want to say right off the bat one more time. This is late for a lot of people. If you're coming in late to watch this, you may not be able to get in if it gets locked down for some reason, so consider not surfing away until you know that you're done. If you get locked out, this will be posted in its entirety on our YouTube channel by the same name, Devil's Advocates, and it will also be hosted on our website, devilsadvocates.info. So just off the bat, if you lose this channel and you want to know what was said, or you can't stay up because it's too late, those are other places you can find it. You'll be able to watch it tomorrow or whatever when you have gotten some sleep or whatever. All right, so I'm going to be looking down at my notes a fair amount because I want to catch my bullet points. I want to point out from the very, very, very outset that what I have to do right now to talk about my opinions about this documentary is I have to be super, super careful that you understand the difference between supporting a narrative and trying to describe what a narrative was, right? So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing my best to tell you what the show's narrative was, what the major points they were trying to make, without interjecting too much what my personal feelings on the matter are. And if you watch my channel enough, you probably know what some of my personal feelings are on it. But I want to be really, really, really careful with this because, again, what I'm going to be telling you is what I think the show's message was. And those key points, that message, could be taken the wrong way by people to say that I am condoning violence, or something to that manner. And I'm trying to make sure you understand. I'm conveying what the episode's take was, what opinions were in the show that were presented, whether or not those opinions are my own. Again, if you follow this channel enough, you probably have a pretty good idea of what my opinions are, but I'm going to be super careful. Also, because of that, I want to point out that I will not be having anybody live tonight with me. I don't want to run the risk of one of my co-hosts saying something. I want to take full responsibility if my account gets kicked off or blocked. So I won't be having anybody on with me live tonight. I also will minimalistically be reading the comments, so I apologize that I probably will not be able to keep up on the comments. I've got 5 pages or whatever of notes to go through. At the end, for those who have the stamina and the wherewithal, I will try to then start getting into questions and comments for as long as we can do that. Thanks for the comment to my necklace. I got this is something that came up in this show as well, so I wanted to make sure I had it more prominent because I'm going to talk a little bit about the Zen aspect of Luigi Mangione, which did come up in the show. Okay, so again, a clarification. This documentary, nor my analysis of the documentary, is an incitement of violence. I'm not inciting violence. I'm not asking anyone to, I'm not having a call to action. I'm not telling anyone to do anything, nor am I advocating violence. This is important because in this episode of this documentary, there was allegations made as to what was in the head of Luigi Mangione if he was the shooter. I will be honest, the episode pretty much made no question that Luigi Mangione is the shooter, so that they weren't using a lot of allegedly. It was more of what I thought it was going to be. It was pretty much a lot of what I thought it was going to be, which is the psychological reasons that led Luigi down this path. So the documentary came from the perspective, okay, Luigi did this. Now let's try to understand how this kid, who everybody says was such a great guy, went dark and flipped his mind and did something like this. And so let's build a psychological profile. That's a lot of what this documentary was for. I will say as well that the documentary was not bad. It's not as bad as I expected it to be. I expected it to be a pure hit piece. It started out making me think it was going to be that in particular, because there's a narrative that a lot of people have that Luigi Mangione had a psychotic break. I have repeatedly stated it on my channel that I don't believe Luigi Mangione had a psychotic break, and I believe that it diminishes what actually happened. And that's a point that comes out in the episode as well. That was a point from the documentary as well that was made very heavy at the end of certain things actually diminish the entire reason why, if Luigi did this, it's diminishing of that act to say things like it was a mental breakdown or something else. We'll cover that in a bit more detail in a minute. So there's a fine line, like I said, that I've got to ride between explaining what the documentary and what the major key points were and my own feelings. And so I'll try to do my best to do that. They started out early talking about how basically this was going to be a psychological profile. How did he become what he did? What happened? What was going through his mind? There was probably some big key, I want to get this out early. There was some big key, quote unquote, new information that I don't recall hearing before. Someone mentioned it at the top of the hour before we got started. They listed specifically that there were 5 fingerprints found on the water bottle and 2 fingerprints found on the kind wrapper. No mention of the cell phone that I remember at all. Now, this is a little bit new information to me. The last I had heard from official sources was that there was a partial print, I believe, on the cell phone. There was some discussion about whether they had partials on other items. This episode, pretty early on, stated very clearly there were 5 prints recovered from the water bottle and 2 prints recovered from the kind wrapper. And I don't recall them mentioning the cell phone in this episode. It is interesting because the other night we had a live in which we talked about the possibility that the fingerprints could have been planted by the suspect, that the shooter may have actually placed evidence to be found by law enforcement with fingerprints on it that are not the actual shooter. That's a whole nother ball of wax. If you want to hear that discussion, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about it on my last live, last night, I think it was. So that also is on YouTube for you to watch and on our website. All right, so those were some of the big things that came out, was the number of fingerprints that they specifically enumerated this time. They started off basically, again, like I said, making it sound like it was going to be he had a psychological breakdown. They started pointing out how basically they talked about the back injury very early and about how he was undergoing pain, and that somehow he had become so frustrated that he decided to target the insurance industry as basically a target for his frustration from the back injury. That was kind of an early, like, come on, man, like, it was a little early for that. Now, to be fair, I want to say that the show did not hammer that over and over as heavily as I thought they were going to. Then when they started out with that lead, I thought, here we go. Because again, and the show did point this out. Luigi Mangione was not a customer of United Healthcare. United Healthcare did not deny any claims or coverage for Luigi Mangione and his back surgery. So the idea that they kind of posited early that Luigi Mangione was targeting his frustration at United Healthcare because of his back surgery almost made it sound like he had a beef against them for the way they treated him. He was not a customer of United Healthcare. That was not, from what I understand, that was not a direct correlation, but they kind of made that implication early on. The psychological stuff happened early on when they told us that at the age of 13, Luigi Mangione admitted publicly online that he suffered from Lyme's disease, and that by age 15, he was having a decline in cognitive abilities. So again, I was thinking to myself early on, here we go. We're going to go down the whole, he was having a mental breakdown. He was on the downward slide. And I want to point out that we all know Luigi Mangione was valedictorian at his prestigious high school where he went to an all-boys prep school at $40,000 a year. It was high-level, high-education people, and he was top of his class. He was also at the top of his class in Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania, and he had major smarts all through the school. So the idea that his cognitive brain decline almost seems a little off juxtapositioned to his academic progress, what he'd done. They did indicate from Luigi, online correspondence from Luigi, that he continually felt like he had brain fog, that he had problems, that even though he slept for 8 hours a night, that he would have problems staying focused. So he had this kind of brain fog thing going on. They indicated that he was reaching a frustration point because no doctor could confirm that anything was wrong with his head. And so they made an early speculation, which I didn't like as well, that he must have been starting to go into depression because nobody can help him with what he's realizing is a cognitive decline. Again, I think it's a little bit disingenuous to claim cognitive decline when he's a valedictorian at a prestigious school and top of his class in the university and forming game clubs and doing all these things. Super bright individual. Doesn't look like he has a lot of impairment. But having said that, there are writings from, allegedly, Mr. Cactus on Reddit, which is supposed to be Luigi Mangione, writing about his problem with brain fog, and cognitive abilities. One of the interesting things they pointed out, some of you may already know this because you may have already dug into the Reddit posts, was Luigi talked about, allegedly in the Reddit posts, using chess, the game of chess, as an ability for him to test his cognitive abilities. And he would play chess with an individual on a regular basis. And he basically, the show indicated that he wasn't learning anything. He was he was getting beat the same ways in a game of chess, and therefore he wasn't learning from his mistakes, and he was testing himself with the game of chess on a regular basis to test whether or not he's got good cognitive ability. So that was one of the interesting things that came out that I had not heard before, allegedly, that Luigi Mangione was talking about using the game of chess as a way to test his cognitive abilities. So we talked about that. Let's see. Let's go to page 2. So they indicated early in the show that Luigi Mangione went to Hawaii for his health. They did not indicate whether or not Luigi Mangione went to Hawaii for his mental health or his physical health. And I don't know that they were really implying either way, but they indicated that he went to Hawaii for his health, that he had another accident, and a surfing accident, aggravated a previous back injury, and again, started to indicate that this was the downward spiral of something changing with Luigi Mangione, that what happened in Hawaii and happened on his trip, that this led to a potential downward spiral. I want to say a little bit about the cognitive or the psychotic break. I don't believe the show continued on the idea that he had a psychotic break, and I think it would be I still want to explain to you why what I heard tonight actually fits what I thought about Luigi Mangione early on, that if Luigi Mangione did this, that the reason why he did it was to be a statement against the capitalism, a statement against the crimes of the health insurance industry. It was a statement. And to then say that he was just having a psychotic break and something went wrong with him because it implies no rational human being would decide to do something like this. So he must have been effed in the head. Something's wrong with him. That completely, and I've said it before and the show said it, that completely diminishes what Luigi was trying to accomplish. If he did this, if Luigi Mangione did this to make a statement for the little people against corporate greed and corporate whatever, for you to say that he just had a mental breakdown diminishes everything he did and makes what he did a waste. In fact, that's how the episode ends, was with Gurwinder Bogle, who I'll talk about more in a little bit, basically saying Luigi just wasted this opportunity, because it's never going to be about what Luigi wanted it to be about. It's all going to be about Luigi, how cute Luigi is, and how everybody wants to go to bed with them. You know, that's all it's going to be about. And so it ends with it's sad, because what Luigi wanted to accomplish is not going to happen. People are not going to have the big conversation. They're not going to talk about the corruption and the corporate greed and the unjustness in society, which is what they allege Luigi Mangione was probably wanting to get across to America, was that we need to stand up and stop this. But instead, it's all becoming about Valentines and roses and, oh my God, he's so cute, he's my future husband, when are you going to let my husband out of prison? And so in that regards, they ended the show with Luigi failed at his mission. So I would argue that I have to be careful. I would argue if you are sympathetic to the idea that Luigi Mangione did this for the bigger issue, then maybe you don't want to let this be diminished by just about how cute he is, or insisting and I'm not saying he's guilty. He has not had his day in court. I'm a firm believer in innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. We have not proven this. But that's another thing the show pointed out, is what they think the legal defense is going to be. I think that's super interesting to talk about when we get to that. Let me go through this again, a little bit, some of these other things. They spent some time, quite a bit, talking about his childhood. Like, for example, they pointed out that Luigi Mangione was a simple kind of guy, that his friends, they pointed out when they were younger, were asked to draw a picture, for example, of the house that they wanted to live in. And his friends all drew these big mansions. And he drew a simple, like, very, very simple home. Because while Luigi came from an affluent family, he himself didn't believe in affluence. He wasn't a big person into the riches. In fact, one of the arguments that came out in the show was that they think that the reason someone postulated, I wouldn't say it's the whole, different people were quoted. Someone postulated that the reason Luigi Mangione may have gone dark from his family for 6 months prior to the shooting was that if he kept in touch with his wealthy family, they would be a reality check for him against the whole idea of railing against the elite and about money, because he comes from money. So they indicated that maybe he went dark from his own family because he needed to disassociate from the wealth of his family, who would be giving him essentially a reality check that, look, you have it good. So what are you doing? How you pissed off against the system when we are profiting by the system? So that was an interesting side take that they had. They also indicated that Luigi liked the idea of living simple and being able to survive on his own, living off the land with nothing more than what can fit in an Altoids can. That was a quote from the show, that he liked the idea that he could survive on his own with only what could fit into a Altoids can. So they painted him as a man who came from affluence but was not wanting to be part of the problem, the wealthy society. He viewed himself more as the little person, even though he had every means. So that was kind of one of the things I thought were interesting. And 10 months after he has a discussion with Gurwinder Bogle will and did some reviews on Goodreads about Ted Kaczynski. We're going to talk about now. He goes dark, and then 6 months after talking to Gurwinder Bogle about this big article that we're going to talk about, he then comes back and commits this crime, allegedly. So the Ted Kaczynski thing was pointed out, and basically what they were pointing out was that in his review from his Goodreads account, Luigi Mangione sympathized with the manifesto, if you will, of the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, and that he sympathized with a few things. And I want to point these quotes out to the best that I can. I was writing in sloppy handwriting, so they're not direct quotes. They're as best as I can do. Maybe I'll get this more polished when I do the Wednesday night show. Let me get a drink real quick. But what he said, one of the things that he quoted from the book and that he made comments on in the Goodreads was that peaceful protests are ignored. Economic protests aren't really possible in our current system. Violence never solved anything is a statement that's made by cowards and predators. Recognizing that violence against those who would lead us into our own destruction is justified and a matter of self-defense. And what this shows to me was if Luigi wrote these things, what it shows to me is that Luigi is a thinker, right? So he's trying to say that we need to wake up and we need to think about these things. This blanket statement that people use to shut down things like what happened by saying, well, violence never solved anything, is asinine. And allowing a system to prey upon people and to continue to abuse people and get away with it is cowardly in itself. And this leads to his discussion with Gurwinder Bogle, who had written an article that was titled, I have the title here, but it was something to the effect of about, are we really playing a game? And there was a statement in there that supposedly resonated with Luigi Mangione very much right before he went dark. And that was the statement that that people are mostly NPCs in life. And this means a lot to me, and this goes back to the whole, my Om symbol that I'm wearing, and the meditative sloth, and the tattoos I've got on shamanistic stuff, and whatever. I'm a bit into the spirituality side too. I have another account that I used to be heavy on about spiritualism and stuff like that as well. And so I understand the idea. And it was one of the first things I said when I was talking about Luigi Mangione and the mentality of not wanting to be an NPC. I'm understanding the logic that was presented in the episode, that most of us in life bitch about how bad the system is and complain, but we do nothing about it. We are sheeple. The American people are sheeple who just take it and bitch about how bad things are while bending over to take it by the system. Sorry to be blunt. And so what resonated with Luigi, according to Gurwinder Bogle on his article, was that he was afraid he was becoming one of these people. This was the psychological profile they're trying to make of Luigi Mangione. That he was afraid that he was becoming one of the sheeple. That he was just accepting that we're just all screwed. That we all just have to take it because we can't fight against the system. And he didn't want to be a sheeple anymore. He didn't want to be an NPC going through life doing nothing. And this led to the idea that Luigi Mangione decided to be one of the few, quote unquote, brave enough and honest enough to address the problem and not be a coward. Arguably, like the rest of us in society, right? That he decided he was going to do something about it. He wasn't going to be an NPC. He wasn't just going to sit around and bitch about how bad things were. He was going to try to make a difference, like most of us don't. And it's interesting that he said this, this mentality, because this is also something that I've pointed up, that people pointed up to me, and then I went out and researched the movie and the book, How to Blow Up a Pipeline. The book, How to Blow Up a Pipeline, was a nonfiction book describing how in America corporate greed is out of control, and legislation, passing legislation doesn't do shit. Electing new senators and new congressmen and women doesn't do shit. It has never changed anything. It always stays the same. Our attempts to fix the problem, what the leaders want to tell you, and again, I'm trying to portray what the episode was getting across. What our leaders want us to believe is you are sick and demented to think that violence is going to solve anything. If you want to change things, put new people in Congress. And that never works. It never works. But they want you to believe that. Hey, if you don't like the system, vote new people in. Every asshole you put into the office is the same asshole as the other asshole. It doesn't matter whether they got an R or a D in front of their name. They're all part of the system. And so legislation does not work. Our legislation is written by the corporations being protected. I'm kind of going on a soapbox, and it wasn't all that was in the episode. But the point being is that the message is that most of us just take it. And Luigi decided that he was going to not be a bystander, an NPC, and just take it. Now, they also pointed out that they try to paint this as extreme narcissism, that Luigi Mangione decided that he was not going to be like the rest of the sheeple in America, and he was going to take a stand. And apparently, they used a quote of his, apparently he's one of the only people brave enough and honest enough to stand up and do something about it. And they viewed that as extreme narcissism. I do not believe that's extreme narcissism. Again, I understand. Let me be careful. I'm not calling for violence. I'm not calling for a call to action. But I can understand the logic that most of us, including myself, are pacifist sheeple. I'll bitch. I'll get on TikTok. I'll try to appeal to you that you need to change the frickin' system. But what am I doing to change the system? I'm just yapping. I'm not changing the system. So one could argue the actions of Luigi Mangione were more than just running my mouth. I'm just as guilty as all the sheeple, if that's Luigi's mentality. I'm just as guilty as all the sheeple because I'm not doing anything about it other than talking and bitching and go, man, it's really bad in America. Somebody should do something about this. And I feel a certain level of shame about that myself. And I try to convince myself that having a platform like this and sharing with you that, hey, you guys, we've got a problem is going to help. But we all don't do anything. And again, this is not a call to action. I'm not asking people to go do something. But I want to point out also the similarities that was super interesting between How to Blow Up a Pipeline. The movie, which was a fictionalized version of the nonfiction book, How to Blow Up a Pipeline, was a group of young individuals who got together and conspired to commit an act of violence economic violence against a company to hurt them in the pocketbooks. And their ultimate goal was that other people would follow suit, that it would start a revolution. And there certainly was an indication in this 1 hour episode, in my opinion, that Luigi Mangione was hoping that his actions was going to start a revolution in America. And for a short time, I think we saw the beginnings of that. Do you remember when everyone's freaking out in law enforcement in New York City because there were posters going up with wanted pictures of the CEOs of other health companies on telephone poles? And they were terrified that a movement was happening in America, that the people were becoming galvanized, and that this was going to be some kind of huge movement. And instead, sadly, in my opinion, and I don't have anything against women who find Luigi Mangione, or men for that matter, who find Luigi Mangione sexy, attractive, whatever. He's a good-looking man. I get it. But it diminishes if his intention was to start a movement to wake up social consciousness. We have all failed him in America by turning it into how hot he is and how he's completely innocent, and we hope he walks. Hope he walks is a gray area because you could still think he's guilty and hope he walks. But us making this about the Luigi the man and not about the broken healthcare system and corporate greed, we have failed Luigi Mangione. That was basically a point made in the episode itself. Gurwinder Bogle said, it's sad that if Luigi wanted this to be a change, that he failed. And he's going to pay for it with the rest of his life in jail, or maybe even the death penalty. And so it is sad if you do believe and I can't take hosts tonight. I'm too terrified at the moment of getting shut down by TikTok, so I'm riding a very thin line. So I got a request for a co-host. I said at the beginning of the night I'm not going to be doing co-hosts tonight because I'm riding a thin line on what I can get away with on TikTok. So anyways, Gurwinder Bogle had pointed out, I didn't make this point, that Luigi had actually purchased a $200 founders membership to be able to speak to Gurwinder on a video call. So in other words, he paid for a private blog of Gurwinder's, $200 to become a founding member. This allowed Luigi Mangione to get on a Zoom call or a face-to-face call with Gurwinder, and they talked about Gurwinder's ideas. This is where Gurwinder said that Luigi Mangione shared that he was afraid of becoming an NPC, that he was afraid he was becoming a floater. And it was after his last communication with Gurwinder on, I think it was June 10th, that was the last time Gurwinder heard from him. And it was also about the same time the family lost communication with him. And then next thing we find from the news is that supposedly Luigi Mangione committed this act. So the implication is the last thing on Luigi's mind was, our system is broken. Capitalism is broken. There was lots of quotes that maybe I didn't even hit. Lots of quotes about capitalism being a major problem. As an example, there was a moment, and I realize this is a little rambling. I told you this was going to be first thoughts. It'll probably be more refined on Wednesday. It'll be a shorter episode, 1 hour. It'll be more refined on Wednesday. But these are first thoughts. They pointed out that somebody on Reddit had been talking about a injury that they had and how they're having problems getting coverage. And that Luigi commented to them and said, here's what you've got to do. You've got to tell the doctors and the insurance companies that you are having problems doing your job, that you can't function in the workplace, because they are more concerned in a capitalistic society with your ability to work than giving a shit about your pain or your discomfort or your quality of life. And again, this was what they say was on Luigi's mind. He was saying the system gives zero shits about you as a human being. Don't tell them how much pain you're in. They don't care. It's about money. So if you want to get their attention and maybe get coverage, continually tell them that, hey, I can't be a productive worker in the workforce and pay bills and give you my money for insurance if I don't have a job. Because now they're more interested. Well, that freaking slave needs to work. I'm reading a lot into that. Those things weren't said specifically. But that was the idea, is that Luigi indicated you need to speak insurance language. And insurance language gives zero shits about your quality of life and your pain. They care about money. So you need to couch it in money. I can't do my job if my back hurts too much. I can't be a productive member of the workforce if I don't have this surgery. Then they might listen to you. And that's a sick commentary on our society, in my opinion. But it is what it is. They pointed out how Luigi Mangione made a reference to corporate greed and capitalism on a regular basis and indicated that United Healthcare and the insurance industry was picked because it checked every box of being the epitome of corporate greed. He allegedly had listed that United Healthcare was fifth in market cap gains, right behind Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and one other company. I know that people have argued that that's not true, that United Healthcare is more like 11th or 12th, but in his statement, supposedly from Luigi, he listed United Healthcare as fifth in profits, and yet our expectancy of life and our quality of life is no better. So why are they making such huge profits if we're not getting any better quality of life and we're getting our claims denied? There was a focus, by the way, that I've talked about on many of my, not many, but several of my previous shows about the protests at United Healthcare's office in Minnetonka, Minnesota by the People's, I always forget, PIA. Anyways, there was an organized protest. That was actually shown in this episode with their t-shirts that says United Health, and then so it said United Health Care, but they had written in by the word care, denies care. United Health denies care. They were also carrying around a casket in front of United Health Care that said United Health denies care. This was a growing sentiment right around the time that Luigi went missing. When he went off the grid. And so again, this leads to the question, did Luigi pick up on the idea of picking United Healthcare in part from that protest of United Healthcare? It was certainly getting a lot of attention. People were arrested at that protest. It's right around the exact time that Luigi went missing. Is there any indication Luigi was there? No. But I ask myself, and also I want to point out for those who were wanting to have Luigi not be guilty or whatever, this is reasonable doubt. Anyone who's willing to travel, by the way, from New York and other places to go to Minnesota and protest outside United Healthcare, including carrying around a coffin saying that United Health denies claims or denies care, those people all have motive to have done what was done. So I pointed out before as well. One of the things that was pointed out in this show was that they believe that Luigi Mangione was a lone wolf, and that's one of the things they fear the most, is the lone wolf. The person who goes dark and nobody knows what they're doing, and then they just show up and commit a crime. There's virtually no way to stop that. When you're organized, I guarantee you law enforcement has ability to oversee and watch chat channels and Discord channels and online forums where people are organizing and growing interest and hatred and fomenting things, and people get on watch lists. We better watch that dude. Look what he's posting. He's trying to get people to incite violence. And so they start watching you. What they said in the show was the thing that they get terrified the most about is the lone wolf. The guy that just goes dark, doesn't organize with people, and just appears and does it, because there's virtually no way to stop that. They also had an interesting quote very, very briefly that one of the officials said, at this time, we believe that Luigi Mangione acted alone. But it was the first tip of the hat on their part that they have entertained the idea that he was working with conspirators. I still maintain there's a very strong possibility that he worked with conspirators. I also maintain the possibility that Luigi Mangione has a game going and that he's a step ahead of the game. But there's also the possibility that it's like this documentary was showing, is that Luigi Mangione was willing to take a stand in hopes that he would start a revolution. And what they're saying is he failed. The revolution's not going to happen. People are too interested in him being hot and ignoring what he did and trying to dismiss what he did by saying he didn't do it, instead of saying, yeah, he did it, and maybe that's okay, which is the opinion that will get you in trouble with any mainstream media or TikTok or social platform, is saying something like that. But that's what they're saying, that Luigi probably wanted to have that. They stated also that one person's opinion is that they highly doubt that the defense is going to be Luigi Mangione had mental problems. The defense is not going to be not guilty by reason of insanity. And the reason being is the same reason I have gotten so upset when people keep raising he had a mental breakdown thing around me, was that it diminishes what his whole purpose was. If you say the only reason anybody would possibly have a problem with corporate greed and go to that extreme is that you're just screwed in the head and you must have had a mental problem, because no sane person would do something and think that this is a problem, that diminishes exactly what was done, if he did it for those reasons. So what they're saying is, when you argue that we need to find out what happened to his poor little head, he just had a mental break and a momentary lapse of reason, and once we fix him, he'll be okay, and we'll let him out because he didn't know what he was doing, diminishes the very message that they think Luigi was trying to send, as he knew damn well what he was doing, and he wanted it to be the start of something, and it's all been lost on us. Because we're insisting on saying he had a mental breakdown, or he's completely innocent because he's too cute to have done something like that, or whatever the case may be. We're missing the point. They argued that what they suspect is going to happen, and this was super interesting to me as well, as we've talked about this a lot, that they suspect the defense is going to focus more on trying to find a jury that will acquit. A jury that's sympathetic to what he did and to have no qualms about saying, yeah, he did it, but you should acquit, because it was somehow, in the court of public opinion, the right thing to do, or the understandable thing to do, or the justifiable thing to do. So that's what they indicate in the show. At least one individual indicated in the show that they think the defense is going to be. The defense is not going to diminish what Luigi's actions were by saying he didn't know what he was doing, he had a breakdown, poor Luigi, once we get him some help, he'll be better. It's going to be, yeah, he did it, and we think we can find a jury that'll be like, not guilty. Even if he did, he's not guilty. As my partner has said sometimes, even if he did it, he didn't. And that's what they're going for, and that's what they're trying for. That was an opinion from one of the people on the show. So oddly enough, I'm actually much closer to being finished with my thoughts for the show in an hour, when I thought maybe it might take me 2 hours. So in light of that, we may open up after I do some finishing thoughts to me reading some comments, possibly, depending on how I feel, bringing somebody on to the live to share your opinions. I'm a little nervous if I've never spoken to you before. If I have spoken to you before and you want to take the mic, I'm more than likely to let you on. But if I've never spoken to you before, I'm probably going to be a little bit nervous about that. But I will start reading comments in a moment. So let me summarize. I believe I'm going to take a look to make sure I'm not missing anything else. Oh, one other thing that was interesting, a talk show host mentioned that he went on his talk show and made the comment about how it was disgusting that Americans somehow are treating Luigi Mangione like a hero for killing an innocent man. And that was one of the things I wanted to point out as well before I wrap up. They did paint Brian Thompson as innocent many times, as a perfect family man, despite the fact that he may have been estranged from his wife and living in different houses 1.5 miles away from each other because they may have been having problems. They weren't legally separated, but I'm not sure why they had separate homes. But they depicted him as just this great, fantastic family man who isn't responsible for what happened. It's, again, we've talked about this over and over again, the blame shifting. It's not his fault, it's the system. It's not the shareholders' fault, it's the system. It's not, XYZ's fault, it's the system. So don't take it out on any person because that person's not the system. You need to fight the system. And the way you fight the system is you pass legislation. You pass new congressmen that make changes. And we've talked about this, and the show talked about this, that never changes anything. So in their opinion, or their suggestion, Luigi decided that wasn't going to change the system. Something more drastic had to be done. It was also pointed out, I'm glad I didn't miss this, it was also pointed out that Luigi apparently wrote in some writings that he contemplated using a bomb to do this event, but he didn't want to hurt innocent people. Which leads to the question, and in the dialogue, was Brian Thompson innocent? And as one person pointed the counterpoint, anyone in Brian Thompson's position has blood on their hands. You cannot claim innocence if you're leading the system that is denying care and leading to people's deaths and profiting on better profits every year at the expense of claims being denied because you make more and more profit every year, you deny more claims. That kind of person has blood on their hands. That's what the argument was. And so this notion, and so they kind of presented both sides, to be fair. The idea that Brian Thompson was an innocent guy who's not responsible for a broken system, but conversely, there are those who believe that if you're in charge of the United Healthcare, the leading health insurance industry that denies claims, then you have blood on your hands, and you're not innocent, and you can't do the whole. It was somebody else's problem. It was the system, man. It's not me. It's the system. Last point. Oh, I didn't finish my thought about the talk show host. As the talk show host came out and said that he was disgusted that America was treating Luigi Mangione as some kind of hero, every call, he said, almost every single call he got was irate people in the public telling him he's wrong and he's justifying a healthcare system that kills people by the thousands and the millions or whatever, and somehow that's okay with him, and that he's going to call out Luigi Mangione for the death of one man as being disgusting when the system isn't itself disgusting. To which he countered, I still think it's disgusting that you think killing an innocent man was the solution. So he stuck to his guns, but he pointed out that America didn't seem to agree. No shit. America doesn't seem to agree with the narrative that this is never the answer. There's too many people who are asking the question, was this an answer? Did things change? Did health insurance policies in America change after this event? Yes. In my opinion, yes. Will it make lasting change? Not if this all becomes about how hot Luigi is and not about how the system is broken and needs to be fixed. Okay, so those are my raw first takes. I am thankful to everyone tonight who did not apparently report the show for me saying something wrong. For those who let this continue in its entirety, we did not get a violation of community guidelines. Thank God. We were allowed to talk like adults, treat each other like adults, and have an open and frank discussion. Actually, it hasn't been a discussion because I've been doing all the talking. However, at this point, I will start trying to read some comments from those who may have seen the show themselves. If you think I have not accurately portrayed the show's intent, or I missed a major point that you want me to elaborate on, or something like that, we'll do that. They couldn't find one thing to provide evidence. BT did try to make things better. Right. They just kept saying he was an innocent man and a great family man and a great guy, but they didn't say that he was really trying to make a change. How can you find recordings of the show? You will be able to get the full recording of this reposted to our YouTube channel by the name Devil's Advocates, same name, Devil's Advocates, or devilsadvocates.info is our website. We always have, once we post it to YouTube, we also link that YouTube video from our homepage. So you'll be able to get the whole episode there. I also plan on doing a Wednesday deeper, more analysis where I'm not raw emotions and I've thought about it a bit more on Wednesday and covering it some more. Didn't want to use the bomb to avoid killing innocent. Honestly, so sweet and thoughtful of him. I don't know if that's meant to be sarcastic or real. Probably it was real. So it's difficult because again, we have to be careful to say that we're not promoting violence or inciting violence or condoning violence. But there was a thought process, according to the show, that Luigi specifically wanted to, and in fact, they said, not only did he not want to hurt innocent people, because again, in this show's take, Brian Thompson in his mind would not be an innocent person, but he didn't want to have innocent deaths also being diminishing from what the message was. This was about a corrupt system. It's not about this terrible act of shooting an innocent man. And so it would diminish from that. Not only, I'm sure, I'm not sure, we can't know what was in the mind of anyone, whether or not Luigi was the suspect or not. We don't know if the primary motivation was, I don't want to hurt innocent people, or whether it was, I don't want to have the message get lost. But if a company's CEO can't change their company, then who can? Isn't that part of their job? So that's one of my bones of contention as well. If we take the mentality that no one person is responsible, then if you ask yourself, well, okay, no one person's responsible, so I can't fight the system. If I can't fight the system, I got to make somebody a representative of the system. And most logical people, in my mind, logical people would say the CEO of a company is probably representative of that system. What other person, other than the person who ultimately has to approve all things in your company? Every policy of your company has to be run by the approval of the CEO. So I could see how someone would logic out, if I'm going to hold somebody responsible for the system, a CEO is probably the best you're going to get, because that person has to approve everything. There was talk about the shareholders in this show, and a shareholder finance guy himself was pointing out that that is a major problem. One of the things that he pointed out was you can't have both people's needs and shareholders' needs met. They are incompatible with each other. Getting better health care for Americans is at the detriment of shareholders. Getting better profits for the shareholders is at detriment to the public's interest of getting better care. They are conflicting with each other. So no human being can serve the interests of both the American people and their shareholders when it comes to insurance in particular. And so one can argue Brian Thompson chose to please the shareholders, not the American people, therefore allowed claims to go up under his watch at the expense of profits going up for his shareholders, because he picked a side on whose interest he was going to side with. So Lulu is not guilty to his trial, but BT is guilty. He didn't get to have a trial. BT seems to have been trying to get help, or trying to help by testifying. I do cover, I don't know if you know this, but my channel does cover Brian Koberger, or no, we're not, sorry, you're not talking about Brian Thompson. Yeah, Brian Thompson, right. So, sorry, I thought you went on the Koberger thing. My bad, let's stay away from Koberger tonight. Brian Thompson, right. So, yeah, you make a great point. Brian Thompson apparently has the alleged presumption of innocence, even though under his watch, one could argue he's killed far more people, you could say. Someone could make that argument that he's killed far more people by his actions and his denial of claims than the one act done by the suspect in the United Healthcare shooting. They did not say allegedly much at all, Nicole. They did not say allegedly much at all. It was presumed for the entire show that Luigi Mangione is the shooter. And then the question was, why did he do it? And what was his message? And will his message be lost? They kept mentioning how all his money and privilege couldn't help his medical problems. Yeah. I don't have a lot to say on that, but yeah, other than to say they tried to paint that this must have been the lead to Great Depression on his part. That despite all his money, despite all his resources, they couldn't fix him. And that led to depression, which then led to somebody has to pay for my shitty life. That's kind of how they portrayed it, a little bit. It wasn't terrible, but they kind of portrayed it as he was depressed because he wanted to have a physical life and do things physically with his body, and now he was going to be stuck. That was something I didn't mention. One of the things in the show was this idea that he was afraid he was going to be stuck in a desk job doing non-physical labor because his body was going to be shot and he would never be able to have the life that he wanted for himself. And that made him depressed, and it made somebody have to pay for the fact that he's going to have to work a desk job for the rest of his life and not be physical and do things with his body that he wants to do. It wasn't hit heavy, but it was on there. That woman saying that he was a narcissist by pleading not guilty. Yeah, I didn't like that either. Her claim was bolstered by two things. One, the cocky way he delivered the not guilty, and she thought that looked narcissistic, and his statement that he supposedly made that said, apparently, I'm the only person brave enough to stand up to the system kind of mentality. That was what she claimed was extreme narcissism, that he thought that he's the only person in America who's brave, that everybody else is a bunch of sheeple and NPCs.
Someone mentioned Luigi's grandfather.
I know.
Okay.
I saw that, thanks. My wife came in to make sure I didn't miss a comment, and I did see the comment about Luigi's grandfather, but we are I'm not touching that quite yet. I know a few things about Luigi's grandfather. I don't know that I want to get into that right now, but I did see it, and thanks to my wife for making sure I didn't miss. She's kind of helped me keep an eye on making sure I didn't just dismiss something that maybe I wouldn't want to talk about, but that is something that I'm kind of purposely avoiding. People pleading not guilty is a standard practice. Sorry, they don't like his delivery. Right. I mean, any lawyer worth their salt is going to recommend that their client plead not guilty. That's the default. In fact, if you refuse to give a plea in your case, the court will enter the plea of not guilty on your behalf, because it's presumed anyone in their right mind is going to plead not guilty and not roll over. The only reason you roll over in court and say you're guilty is if you're getting a plea deal, like in the case of Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, who once they decided they were going to put him to death, he said, if you take the death penalty off the table so that I don't get killed for this, I'll tell you everything and I'll confess. But usually it's not guilty as your default thing. Thank you for continuing to stay away from discussing his family. You bet. You bet. That is a dangerous, slippery slope. I wouldn't be surprised if he is rejecting monetary help from his family. I'm not sure I can say whether he is or isn't. He's getting money from somewhere. They hate it when he doesn't let the weight of the trial affect him, right? It probably does bug them a little bit. Yeah. Nobody knows how Luigi felt. I don't think. That was, again, the whole purpose of the show was to try to analyze public statements that Luigi has made and writings that Luigi has made and conversations Luigi had to people to speculate as to what his mindset might be. And this is all just part of the fact that this is a class or a public interest story. Everyone wants to know what really happened and why did it happen. And so people are going to talk about it. Let's see. Grandfather is dead, but has interesting connection to the medic industry and others. Any other questions, comments? Did anybody else watch the show that feels that I have incorrectly stated something or left out a major piece that I probably should have commented on? I'm super thankful that we made it this whole show without a community violation. That's amazing. I'm a nurse. I do not think his personal health has anything to do with this. I don't believe his personal health has anything to do with it as well, for the record. I refuse to watch the documentaries. That is perfectly fine. I get that sentiment. I understand why you would refuse to watch those. Thank you. Somebody watched it and said that they thought I did great with the analysis, so that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I try to be fair with the analysis, even though I'm giving tainted, biased opinions. I try to do as best I can to portray what was said. And yeah, everyone who's given me thanks for having done this review, you're welcome. Thank you so much. Again, super flattered that you took your time to listen to my opinions on the show. So I think that's amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, a lot of them are copy and paste documentaries. This one didn't feel as much that, to be fair, Michelle. I thought that they did a great job compared to some of the other hit pieces. It was a little different. So I'm not saying it's without flaw at all, but I don't think it was cut and paste. Like if you watch the P. Diddy stuff, the P. Diddy stuff is almost cutting and pasting over and over and over again. So thank you for giving me another support that I gave a fair analysis of it. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But yeah, I thought this take it provided some new food for thought. I really appreciated that the show didn't hammer this idea that he had a mental breakdown and he had a psychosis and that he's just effed in the head, and instead said maybe he was trying to make a statement. And maybe his statement is going to get lost. Do you think it would help to open eyes on starting something or make him look more guilty? Do you think it would help open the sheep's eyes? Is that where we got the sheep's eyes or starting something? You know, here's the thing. I'm contemplating a difficult decision myself. I believe that if Luigi did this, he did this for the statement. And because people are lying down and taking it like sheep and not having the discussion. And I've said several times on other lives and other videos that we are doing a disservice to what the intent was if we just diminish this as there's no way he did it and he's super hot and cute. We're ruining the message if there's a message behind it. I'm trying to decide if I can for myself. I'm trying to decide if I can work in some of that discussion to open people's eyes to how bad and corrupt the healthcare system is and how bad the class structure in our country is and the inequality without losing people's interest. So I realize that people are interested in Luigi because he's a charismatic individual and the story has captivated our attention. And so if we stop talking about that and only talking about the issues, no one's going to listen. But there's a part of me that feels that I have a duty to try to make it a little bit about what the actual message was, if that's the message. And yes, I probably don't say it enough, so let me repeat this. Luigi Mangione is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. We do not know that Luigi Mangione is the shooter. Once again, when my wife was watching the show with us and they showed that Jake Gyllenhaal face picture of him, she's like, that's not even Luigi. I'm like, I'm telling you, the faces don't match. A lot of us know the faces don't match. So we'll see where this goes. But he's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So let's see where it goes. But what I'm saying is this. If he is guilty, let's not lose the discussion, because there might be a bigger discussion that we need to have. And that's what I'm afraid of, is that if he did it, and if he's found guilty, that people will just check out, well, screw that guy. I guess he did do it. I was hoping he wouldn't, but he did. Let's move on. It's 2:00. I got to go watch the football game, and forget why it was done if he did it. So many other, let's see, comments. The corporation in politics have got to go. Politicians can't be bought and sold. Or can be bought and sold, yeah. Our political system is horrendous in America. We are, gosh, can I get away with this? You would think in a country with free speech I can get away with this. So there's a game called Civilization. Where you play the rise and fall of nations, and you try to lead a nation to victory. And in Civilization, you've got to pick your government style. And my eyes were first opened decades ago when I was playing Civilization. I've been playing Civ versions for years. And I decided to play a fascist government. And I went, that's the United States. A fascist government, by definition, your laws are written by corporations. And that's 100% true. Corporations pay lobbyists, they lobby congressmen, they give donations to congressmen in exchange for congressmen writing bills and passing bills that benefit the corporations financially. People go to jail that the corporations want to go to jail for, and they pass laws that require us to have mandatory health insurance, for example, because it benefits the health insurance industry, and all these things because we live in a government system that is owned by corporations. These are some of the bigger talks I hope we can have and not lose everybody. Yes, I will have this posted tonight in about 2 hours on YouTube. Look for Devil's Advocates on YouTube, or maybe easier, devilsadvocates.info, my website. It'll be linked on the front page when the YouTube video goes up from our website. Thank you for asking and being interested in seeing the whole analysis. I'll hang out only for a couple more moments, I think. We have a really high concurrent user list for our channel. We're small fish. We're still only about 5,000 followers. We've got 48 in the room. That's a pretty big record for us. I love the fact that you guys have hung around as long as you had. Thank you so much for sharing time with me tonight, and to listen to my opinions, and to let it be a one-sided discussion where all you got to do is listen to me ramble my butt for an hour. I appreciate you so much for spending the time with us. I hope you will continue to support the channel, follow what we're doing, maybe engage in those bigger discussions, if you will. So thank you so much. And so with that, I'll say the last piece. Again, devilsadvocates.info. There'll be a link to this video which will be posted on YouTube. So the YouTube video will go up in a couple hours. There'll be a link to that on our website, front and center. You can watch it there if you want to watch it in its entirety. I will also plan to do a 1 hour deeper dive where I've taken some of the emotion out, and we're now talking more focused on Wednesday. I normally go live Wednesday and Friday, every Wednesday and Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's a regular thing. I will do it again on Wednesday, and I'll try to do a little bit deeper dive, a little bit more serious, a little bit less scattered, hopefully, on Wednesday. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great night.